The mantra equal to the unequaled. The mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisoha. Sharaputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan rose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Abhijivara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you indicated. Even the Tadakams are joyful. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharaputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Abhijivara, those surrounding Niranjara along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. Page 25, the short mandala.
Ajan Jushi Meta Vira Brinche Nete Gambate Sange Shinde Mete Uvaji Troko Namda Shinna Chopa Sho Tamba Namji Chögye Kala Kenze Chechen Chetara Zambi Shensen Mara Sage Chögye Chaba Babdu So Mandala Kamiriya Tayami Chadan Sache Chanana Chanchu Badu Tani Chapsuchi Tagi Jinse Jipe Sanuchi Twala Pinche Sange Rupa Sho Chadan Sache Chanana Chanchu Badu Tani Chapsuchi Tagi Jinse Jipe Sanuchi Twala Pinche Sange Rupa Sho Chadan Sache Chanana Chanchu Badu Dagni Chapsuchi Tagi Jinse Kipe Sanamji Sangye Rupa No. Assuming that correct motivation, one is going to listen to the Lamrim teaching, not just for oneself, but for all sentient beings who have been kind to oneself, for the purpose of placing them quickly in the state of Buddhahood. In order to do that, oneself needs to become a Buddha. In order to do that, you need to generate a path. In order to generate a path, you have to know a path, which in turn depends on hearing. So we should listen then with that bodhicitta motivation. Today, meeting with the teaching of Lama Tsongkhapa, which has great blessing, we rejoice. Mm-hmm. 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 Laro. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Being able to hear this teaching, which contains the blessings of Lama Tsongkhapa's work in terms of the condensation of all of the lamrims. Of course, Lama Tsongkhapa composed various breadths of lamrim, vast, medium, and small. So we could say that this teaching, is the condensation of all of those lamrims, in the sense that Lama Tsongkhapa meditated, gained insight into the truth, and then composed those texts. So when you visualize the merit field in the space in front, you can visualize in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha, surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or all the gurus in the aspect of Lama Tsongkhapa is fine. That is fine. Or if it's easier for oneself, all of the lamas in the aspect of Manjushri, all the enlightened beings in the aspect of Manjushri, whatever fits your mind, or all of the enlightened beings that you have met or that you have a direct connection with, just thinking and having the strong feeling or sensation that they are there, that's most important. And as we visualize that merit field, we recite the text together. I here's to you, foremost of the Shakyas, whose body is formed by 10 perfections, virtues, and excellence, whose speech fulfills the hopes of infinite transmigratory beings, whose mind perceives all objects of knowledge, innumerable universes, assuming the responsibility of all the conqueror's conduct. You are the supreme signs of the fearless teacher. Prostrate at the feet of Nagarjuna and the sun, ornaments of Chandra, renowned throughout the 3 levels, The composed commentaries in accordance with the teaching on the mother of the conquerors about Uttapanchara Atisha, all those instructions that gathers together the important points completely and mistakenly. So the profound view and wise conduct from the deep serenity is a prostrate aspect to the spiritual teachers. Eyes that see infinite scriptures. Clarify the supreme entry for the fortunate attain to liberation. The stages of the path to enlightenment are the excellent lineage handed down from Nagarjuna and the Sangha, crown ornaments, and banners of fame resplendent among transmigratory beings. For this instruction, the King Powerful fills all the desired aims of the 9 types of beings. Duration of glorious and excellent explanations, gathering the rivers of 1,005 scriptures. Through it, you can realize that all the teachings are without contradiction. Understand all the scriptures as instruction. Easily find the intention of the conqueror. From the abyss of the wise beings of enduring truth. This method gathers the essence of all the scriptures. Even teaching here in a single session definitely gathers great waves of the assembled benefits of explaining or listening to the Holy Dharma. Rely correctly. And please them with often practicing just as it. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. This body of leisure, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Though difficult to obtain again, it finishes quickly, lightning in the sky. Having reflected in this way, realizing that all worldly activities are like winter chaff, we must attain its essence day and night. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Certainty that after death you will not be reborn in the bad migrations, the 3 rare sublime ones, due from the sphere. Therefore, steadfastly take refuge in them and never degenerate their precepts. In addition, think well about the results of black and white actions and depend on the correct practice of that to be adopted and that to be rejected. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Until you attain a body with pure characteristics, you will not make progress in your practice on the supreme path. Train in the causes for becoming free of those impurities. It is particularly important to purify karmic obscurations. Therefore, continue reliance on purification with the 4 forces. Practiced in this way, I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. If you do not put an effort into contemplating true sufferings, the faults of samsara, you will not develop the wish for liberation. If you do not contemplate true origins, the steps for entering samsara, you will not understand how to cut the roots of samsara. Therefore, rely on weariness, definite emergence of samsara, and cherish the knowledge of what binds you to samsara. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. That's it.
다체되게 대화속으로 나가라서 네게 되니로 숙청물리거든 네 가르린 거라서나 이제 두den게 님이 til 제가 두den 님이 삼라 마베나 스비 두den 님을 딜 삼로 망고 마담 베이나 스거다 삼로 마담 베이나 딜 베전신 삼로 다 두딩이 니믹디 내주 시다워시 마삼바체 델라야 베즈마 체비나 네 타와더니로 제도고 말해스 제제 제르무진 세보 송도와
We are looking at the middle scope, and here on page 6, that second paragraph, if you do not put effort into contemplating true sufferings, the faults of samsara, you'll not develop the wish for liberation. Here, there is only a few lines, but the import is vast, and we can reflect on that a lot. Well, in reality, we don't have a renounced heart, isn't it? We don't have a mind that strives for liberation. We don't have it. Why not? Because, in that sense, our minds are consumed with the bliss of this life, and our clinging to the happinesses of this life is strong. So we're not even really thinking, we're not putting great effort into thinking about the faults of true sufferings. So therefore, no mind of liberation is produced.
제가 기생아마도 동해제 동해투 동해삼 삼바도 망고시 돌아
Yeah.
다나도 지기 동해의 셰라 지당의 동해 안 밀라미세게다 동해 망고시 용고다 밀라 근데 다 미동해도 저당서 셰무도 안가란저 수수 용고도 알아 수수 용고에 왜인자 다가나래 뇽된 줘도 제 상마 안 믹세 단다 뭐마시지에 나는데 송도 초라 이지 동해디 타메나라 루지소스 초라스데 데즈미 벤조의 녀당 아니 롭조의 녀당 지 벤조의 녀다 초스데 뒤중하는지
이기동요.
데지 내당 야가도 두들라 이 동해 요래서 데 덴바레도 안가란서 초와디 내당 야르르데 네 심구 동해데 망도 아마 초와지에 간라 딩상한테 심기 동해 망고든데 고야요 말에 요 말은 안 줄어 가르스나 디 심기 동해데 심구세요 인자 삼다에 뒤져요 말에 칼라체가 도라 칼라체가 도래 둘러다네 제 강바다 딘데게 답지 다 미세레 칼라고라 말아베 동해디 디돌 삼노단지 디그르메지 딩사 심기 미디 투디지 셰그도 나디시그도 미디지지 시그도 디 미디 알라믹다그도 지지지 다 디두 상마 심지 쉬울소다 딩사로 바데 두두 상마 아니 베존네다 야고지 셈 아니 직 타도다 진심다 아니 직딘데게 셈다 셈기 동에 쉬워지다 다 잠블링 코란라다 잠블링 코란라야 다디 벤조네다 야르도 인자 아니 심비네다데 다 동해디 슈처르도레사데 루엔 파골락 송아데다 초라 이기 동해사데 덴바레도 하다 그래
So we've looked at the general faults of samsara and the sufferings in terms of the 8, 6, and 3 types of demerits and sufferings. So now we're going to look at them specifically, not need really to say a lot about the first level of sufferings of humans, because we know it. We experience it. And as Aryadeva states in the 400 stanzas, for the privileged, for the well-to-do, pain is mental. For common people, it is physical. And we can see this in the world now. Before, it used not to be the case because people had to put so much effort just to search for food and clothes that they didn't suffer much mentally. Now, because they have those food and clothes, the suffering mentally comes from worrying about, what's so-and-so saying? What's their opinion? 1, 2, and 3. Or so-and-so looked at me, 1, 2, and 3. And over and above that, those mental worries, there is the fact that because you have wealth, you get jealous or competitive around it. So we can really see this level of mental suffering in the world now is clear for us to see. This is just like the nature, as Aryadeva so clearly says, for the privileged, pain is mental.
해라 타메나는 루지 소스다 알아서 내단 저거도 루지 동에 데마레도 안 알아서 미지 내단 저거도라 아니 칼라마라바 레가 마라베 동에 칼라마라베 동에 둘로 마라베 동에 아니 나스나나 맹간라도 멘데 동에 메주체 마라 동에
Yeah.
아니 부구 labda ke lobion de marabe 동이 미 저거도 잘라도와 저 류지 동이 망아도와
Yeah.
세브레도 어디로
And second line of the 400 stanzas verse is that for common people it is physical. That's true, isn't it? The people who are less well-to-do, they're always looking for finances or food or trying to find a job. The suffering of not getting either of those, the suffering of having nothing to wear, the suffering of, if you are poor and you're sick, going to hospital and having to get medicine. Or how do we pay the children's school fees? It's a reality, isn't it? What Arya Davis says.
제가 다 동에 니지네 니르 직된라야 당하면서 동에 니지스로 제가 아니 미 내다 야고 니트절라 세미 동에 망아요 내다 류지 동에 디니니기 아니 직된 니만라야 아니 수수게 디지 좀 받치기 어렸다
Right, so having highlighted or kind of recognized those two levels of mental and physical suffering for the well-to-do and poor, likewise, then day after day it is said that those types of pain are experienced in the world.
제가 따야 동해 상로 망보 따는데 동해 상로 따는 선바마지베 체제 대스게요 맞다스로 디 먼저 뒤에 망보지게 디 년년 맞아야 돼 가르쳐서나 동해 신이되고 상로 따는데 선바마지베 열어로 근데 다 동해 고 join 차선다 상로 따는 뒤에 수수심로 마지베 용거래다 연디 장갈라니 마지베디 먼저 되고요 말아 아주 디 트레버지 간대 치고도 디 트레베 탑 카르도 두스 삼로 따야 돼 계저 니버디 간라 로고 그래서 당보디 삼로 동해 삼자냐 다되나 아니 다니 줘요 말해 로 다디 디 간라 단다 나랑서 다 직도 로종이 냠네 로종이 냠네 야 직다 숙좀 매우 인자 아니 동해 삼로 땅 말해 동해 요요 코나 동해를 메시지 제제네 마지와 용구도 알아 디네가블라 로종이 되서야 삼로 당기 한배 동해 지냐 삼단에는 셈바디만 누가 냠도 여러분들 차 년가 여러 곱다 밸런스 고고 여러 세단들이야 아니 대책대 신나야고도 나도 준 책대 양생스 동구요
알레 음악집
그래
집잡디
말을 단다디
로종
카라 굼중기 책지와 단대 동해 참여장스 아멜랭의 세주니스 치마 대화 주주에 돌아가고 komis시 안세스토
야
책대 교비나 아니 펜도 전부도 와지단다비 다 수수수수 책이 미스스를 초대단 담면도 와 양알의 펜도 용거도 지란zo 용거레스티 양 겨와요 말해 수수 소남다 레기 대화당 아니 수수기 로종게 백그라운드게 쿼틱들 쿼 렘다 요마연디 미스스스스 감다 매발 잘레기 요래로 한 수수의 미신 tik신다던데 요비네 간다 개치슈디 돈다 갈땐 거스나 단다 동행 천주 용된 요된 나게 간다들 동행 용야디 저가메 레 님베 데우디 세로고 요스다 봐 데우 세로고 왔다고 데우디 단대디 데우로 봐그 중앙망원도 송으로 시단데 동행이 데우디 세나 아니 다 동행 친제 동행 용거 말아 왔다 가래 용거래서나 아니 다 친제 가래 용거래 라면데 다 대외 주의 데우디 미줄하대서 아니 다 친제 대화 용거랬어요 세상에 한다 동해 용어디 다 야고래 과 동해디 파 매버 차송사 딜레야 마지버다 마가워체 마데 가오곰스르 봐 배야고래서 가오곰고스 로종디 가라곰준 식디 누바첨부 코데오 배 야고도
Well, it is the case that one should reflect on suffering, but then, don't just stay in that. There has to be a mind that initially reflects on the dissatisfactory nature of suffering, but it would be counterproductive to stay in that mindset without doing anything about it. So therefore, there comes a point where one thinks, how about escaping? How about a method to get out of that? So there's two things happening. First is that you contemplate that dissatisfactory situation, and then secondly, how about getting out of it? And in that sense, to stop us from staying in that negative mindset or being too negative just from reflecting on the sufferings, the mind training comes in. And the fact that we only experience suffering, but we don't know how to bear it, is our lack of mind training, our lack of putting the mind training teachings into practice. So in that sense, if we think on suffering too much, we can't bear it. Well, what we need here is a balance. Rather than get down, have a balance. So to me, what really helps are these words by this great yogi, Karabanchuk, who says that, the suffering one is experiencing now is the maturation of the non-virtue one did in the past and won't have to be experienced in the future. So it is better to suffer now and rejoice. Rejoice in that experience of exhausting non-virtue on the one hand and having a mind of bliss in the future. Well, it's true, isn't it? When we think about meeting with a suffering situation, it is because we created the karmic cause in the past life, and the non-virtues that we're experiencing now in terms of the dissatisfactory result are being exhausted. The second part of the verse of the advice of that master says that because one won't have to experience the results of those non-virtue in the future, one can be blissful when one experiences the sadness. So therefore one rejoices in experiences the suffering. This is a verse that's very helpful for me. I'm not saying it's helpful for you, because everyone has their different karma and dispositions, but these types of verses are very useful.
기생동에 망부지 다 양자 되는 동에 쉐고로 야디 버르들라 사무단단데 마셔나야.
Yeah, so in last class we went quite into like everything's suffering, isn't it? So if we go again to it tonight, we need to take a bit of a break and lift it up a bit.
samlo yawotanada coordinagalada 동의를 얘기하려더라.
Well, but really, when you think of reality, the nature of samsara is just like that. It is dissatisfaction.
직 동의로 강의로 직 파스도 양직 용어더라. 양직 파스도 양직 용어. 양직 파스도 지금 양직 파. 나 가셔라다 또 배도 자시오든데 용되거든. 나 미수수 수술에 담면도. 세상에 콜라 지금 마가와 동해당 강의들도 될 마가와 맞춰지. 아니 지금 내주 약으로 주는데 쇼지 가오제야 호딩 맞춰지.
Okay.
디 가우두기 간라 로디시라게 맞춰나나. 아니 수수 셈이 시디디. 냐두고 요랬다.
So then, in the sense that the suffering abates, and then a new type of suffering comes, and then that abates, and then another wave of suffering comes. It is more like that. But it would be important not to go too down into the extreme of that suffering situation. Keeping it in perspective and keeping a joy around the fact that the non-virtue is brightening, to keep that perspective of not being too down. And on the other hand, when good things happen, we tend to be too up and too jumping. But there's a danger there, because if you go to that extreme, you lose your mental peace.
Not hoarding or nodding, maybe I don't like this, I like this. This this judgment
strong bias either way. Don't have. Don't like that. I like that. Yeah. So the danger there is then the mind immediately has made like a boundary, like a border. Oh, that's good, that's not good.
그래서 로존 세계에는 심지어 담제 20년을 가딩 차네 상만 냠바래라도 아니 상만라 찍고 가딩 차네 냠바래 찍바래 상다잖아 아니 야고도
If we really get the first verse of the 8 verses of mind training and then seeing each sentient being as kind as a wish fulfilling jewel, equally as kind, same.
다도저 영화라도 영화는 준대게 돼서 곰데스 잡잖아 삼로 땅도나 통보 이제 주딩다 주충우다 다 람게 직삼로지 내야 신이 상황들 준대가 남셔야 돼.
Right.
이 삼로 망보 땅도나 야고여서.
So then in that context then to really get this point we need to reflect on the law of causality, cause and effect, because that's what's qualifying these two scopes, right? The initial and medium scopes. You really have to understand cause and effect.
어디시 다디네 기승은서 코지 동에디 시에심바시로. 다디네 소소 동에시엔데 도와리투 수수수수 그 동에시에들이로.
Right, so we've looked at the general demerits of the cycle of existence, and now specifically you go through each of the realms, isn't it?
다디네 도와리투제로. 네 숨숨다 덴도숨 제로.
Right, so going through the 6 transmigrators, 3 lower realms, 3 upper realms.
다 녜손숨게 거디 기승에마 기우충우가라 직도차로 와서 대단대들라 롭도 직도차래 다 녜손숨 수수 동에 셰윈데 믹세게 아니 녜손숨라도 가르스나 툰두체 네 냐와이다 디르와 다 툰돌라야 가르스나 툰둘랭고 그 동에 로 툰둘랭고 그 동에서 렘바 뭐 마신베 동에 랭고 그 동에서 라마트네로 와 제장은 저 윤용내 대도 계제 시금도 왕아제 지기도
Right.
디 가르드는 튼르동에 시야가 치도 나제 지기 어디
Now, of course, the unfortunate migrations, those 3 lower realms, we did touch on those briefly before, those of the animal, hells and ghost realms. Of course, what is it that animals experience? They cannot speak or be introduced to things by means of speech. So the reason we don't speak during Nune is to purify that, or remember that.
You understand suffering.
Understand suffering of not speaking. Sorry.
Suffering. And then main reason is developing your compassion, right?
Yeah.
제가 튼돌래야니 찌기찌기 싸워 동해로 배낭아서 낭배 소야를 가져가게더라 단인 쪽지 중에 달로 쪽지 정말 치송하셔서 낭배 부구디 낭둑 닭디 부구디 닭링디 예데 닭 가져도 찌기찌기 사진제 준 아니 동도도 강 지나스나나 딩아디 나그두스 랍토면도 저거도나 깨로죠 깨르죠 키드즈 깨제도 뭐지 다 깨데 가르쳐고요 하고 오므로 봐 짐바 당겨요 콜라 잠무제고 요메 저거도 그요나 나자나기 가리 하고 오면도 알아 제가 그 깨르지도 깨기도 다들 미다고자기 키드즈다 심미도저로 다 가시 나고 그런 요말다 제가 튼둘랭고 그 동에서 아니 찍라 찍사회 동에 결혼도 단다데 디스커버리 사마레 단다 전세계 제나지 TV 제나시도 와.
Yep.
디나다다 찍사제. 간데 동에도 튼두 그 동에 간데도 그러다 저래 튼두 투무 많이 배 동에도 저래. 제가 나지디 제다 겨와다 가와 나와도 저래 지금이서 요요로 하다고.
Those sufferings really animals are going through of constantly eating each other, even passing away like that. It happens to the ducks. They lose the ducklings. How many are left from those that were born? And then that lack of ability to communicate what they are feeling. So that could be sickness. If they're hungry, if the stomach is empty, they want to go to the toilet, whatever's going on, or they want to play, they'll just make certain sounds. Okay, so some owners who have pets might decipher some of the sounds, That's not the case for wild animals. In terms of the suffering of eating each other, you can see on the Discovery channels and so forth, those types of suffering that are uncommon to animals, let alone birth, aging, sickness, death.
I have teacher, house teacher in monastery, a pilgrimage, a house teacher, and he went in Nepal on some holiday, and then the family has TV, TV, and they watch discovering this animal channel, and then they take her kill chasing deer, deer, and he watching, and then their parents are coming for lunch, and they stop TV, and he couldn't eat food because he's thinking, oh, this deer he has some developing compassion, and he's cry, and he said, I can't eat food now. I think he saw, oh, this deer is already dead, and they're thinking they're suffering. He told me, oh, this is terrible, 세상에 둔두 동에 된대요. 다데네 둔두도 동에 가능한 통도 알아.
Yeah.
다데네 이다라야들 이다. 세상에서 6내라. 아니 칼라마사체 추동구면도 유다 제공운동에서 세상 이다 제공운동에서 이다게 동에 시야체 이다 동에 시 이다를 인지적으로 어디체도 6내 가들라. 6내 돼야 돼. 즉 팀단시에서 저는 되고 말 6내 대사회지 닝지 야제도 그러다.
Yeah.
소디 제레스기 라면은 좀 많이 당구도 하대. 닝지 제는 디디타야다 닝지 쪼디 닝지 야제로 하시되네. 나제야다 칼라마사야디 쪼디 닝지 공부도 해야 되더라. 저는 저런서 6내 대여로 하다. 제매 대여인데 다 냠뇨직 사사로 고바디 하고는 고바 민유디 하고는 아니 6년이 왜 전부 차용 거라.
So animal suffering is like that. You can see it. The hungry ghosts suffer from lack of food and water, the suffering of hunger and thirst. And it is to this end, when we do the nunes, to increase our compassion for that situation. It is not just that when we do nunes, we keep the vows. Certainly not. The purpose of the nunes is to increase the compassion, the practice of Chinrezek, and to purify. So one should know that when one does the nunes, the purpose of the experience is to increase the compassion and understand what they're going through.
이다 대공운동에서 레가 레왕으로 봐. 먼저 뒤 포버드는 추동구도 하대. 아니 이다지라 대대배나 근데 추동구만 근데 차동 차 레왕 제가 근데 추동에 차동 두고 말아. 아니야 이 추동가도 매우 차도고 그러봐. 추당한테 살레빈도 추당 참았잖냐. 배나가서 자저담도 이다도 배 정말 체매 체단 차도고요. 건조 나올 추요 말다. 근데 레스니도 두스도 용거로. 건조 이다가 나올라. 건조 자저 칼로도 추통고도. 건조 정말 체마 탕 동바 사주 동바 통고. 포버디는 그 추디 건조 추통고도. 말아도 빼야 버려 추통. 레디 추통해도. 이다를 겨울에나 주동해요 말에 줄로나다도 나왔네. 어딘데 차로요.
The hungry ghosts, that suffering of hunger and thirst, for example, when they see this glass of water, for their karmic appearance, it would appear as blood. Well, we couldn't drink blood, could we? But even when they come to a body of water, that water would no longer be, and it would be like sand, like a desert. Let's say they come to the ocean's edge due to their karmic appearance. The water is no more. The water is like sand, empty land. And our karma is quite good, isn't it? Because when we see that cup with water in it, we can drink it according to our karmic appearance. But for the karmic appearance of a craving spirit, hungry ghost, that water appears as blood and pus.
안저 소남 미수스 레왕이 디 일라 이저 되지야 과말에는 안저 미카시에 디 수시 세부랑 통은 말이라 미카시에 통은도 수시 세부 통은도 아니 디 통나 아니 야마야스다는 안저 겨와시로다 nga sushi sebo del kagiyo nga sushi sebo la kagme sushi sebo jigyaro 미지 가고도 미지 가고면도 하고 마 띵사로도 수수수게 샘게 삼단단 그러와 근데요.
And often the way things, we should understand this point on a subtle level, the way things appear to us is according to our merit, karma too. You know, some people don't see the color clearly as you might see it. But then as you go deeper into it, there are likes and dislikes within that as well.
달래 신이디 진짜 레왕라 라레기요도 그봐 동해 용단도 레왕라 라레기요.
So we can now talk about suffering experiences in terms of karmic appearance.
알아서던데 먼저 미투도 디나라 먼저 디게 강바지고 내단 지고지 잖이나 엠미가실라 디나라 베 대와 가셰데 마데오 가셰 마지오 초디 담만에 열다 가셰데 차기요로 가셰 지기요로 가셰 대오메오로 가셰 지오요로 가셰 대오요 그런 상황 미 스스 experience 마지 시에나 메다메다메다 요랑 알아서 녀와 상황으로 내단 지날 때나 디 가르쳤나 스스 레완다 소남다 아니 삼단단다 딘델 되네 용구였다.
For example, all of us in this place, the six of us, for some it would be a place of bliss, yet others might feel a bit ill at ease. Some might feel a little bit hot, or some a little cold. We have feelings a lot. And some might feel pleasure, some might feel not so pleasure. Our experience is so varied, even within the constraint of the one place. Why? Karma and merit.
아니 소남 디 가라서 디 카레도 그래서는 네 피자든데 소라 피자서도 먼저 미투기 피자 서비나 규제지구지 냐래라 페집 정말 규제지구지 냐샤라 네 피자지 서치란 비슨 규제지구지 냐 차진지구지 냐이나 근데 피자 정말 좋아합니다요.
And that merit, how does it work? We all got the same ingredients. We all make individual pizzas. I make one, you make one. All of those pizzas will taste differently.
제가 어디래다 양한저지 이다 차통 직세데 고하고도 디냐 딩고라서 무엇은 하는지 밀레 용고도 다 가라래 그러
That's, you know, it's hard for us to see or perhaps understand that for a karmic appearance for a craving ghost to be blood and pus, because we're in the constraint of humans seeing it otherwise.
나 이다 대공 도해라데 아니 저거도 아니 주동도 미외나나 만들어내려 가시 밀류된래 안달란리네 송고도 냐와다 이다 그 동에 둔두동에 밀류된래 녀와 예스 송고도 제가 다라래 미카시 커뮤니케이션 같으시나 라마트지는 둔두난시 링구로
아야
둔두동에 여러 건들 봐 밀레 예송으로 밀레 둔두동에 녀야 밀레야 아니 이다 대공 동에 녀야 베나 미카시 단데도와 소다브르가도 주고 침보게 파고 두드래 봐 주고 침보 락마 강고 타고 아니 깨베 파고 아니 칼라 사마도 아니 칼라 유릉보 칼라 메베 데빈자 칼라 뎁징라 망고탄도 뭐다 아니 추티바티바티바티바티바 제코야 소고다다 이다서도 다가라래 이다 동에 다가라래 미디라 통야도 하더라
And as it says in the Lamrim, the various karmic ripenings can occur within the human support of that. For example, some people just can't speak communicate what they want to, similar to animals, and yet others, although they have a human body, will experience what it's like to be a hungry ghost. We see in some continents their large stomachs and then really constrained neck, and it's very hard for them to eat for a sustained period. Their hands are like charred almost. They can't eat for long, and then the water doesn't go down. It has to go. They have to take tiny, tiny drops of water. This suffering is really, really similar to the hungry ghost realm.
안데네 다 냐와라야 차당 동에서네 아주 상상라 틱베 동에 담에 동에 밀레뉴에도 아니 하장 딩산티 착바 망보 군가 된데 나라 소자 망보 시로도 하다 저 따다 저 담에 동에 용거로 아니 메나라 메 바르니 미나라 소자 망보신다 미시기도 미데즈 용어도 소자 쉬우시기도 안도 메나라
소자?
둔도
알레옹.
둔도도 메나라 시루더라 미 신나던데 메 바르데
알레옹.
아니 미카셰 디나라 시루고도 저 상마타 아니 단단한서 가서디 사원에야 메요 하시다 가서디 왜거노서 가서
Australia.
나 세원에야 메요 하시다 가서
Volcano.
왜거노 디나라 치우다 딘데 사비나 간저다 메고나나 최대로다로 더도 냐외 동에 사회 동에 단 태외 동에 먼저 미기 맛 먼저 뭐스 냐와다 딘데 마토나 데 동에 데도 냐와데 먼저 하고다 통고다로 사랑 동에 다라래.
Of course, and even those extremes of the hot and cold hells can be experienced in humankind as well. Similarly, those that die in extreme cold, icy places. And we know of the fires that have consumed lots and lots of animals and insects. Some humans also died by fire as well. And then, although we cannot see directly the hot hells, the type of fire that consumes birds that live in volcanoes would be similar, to just be melted by that lava. Even though you don't see the hot hells directly, it is just like that.
다데네 나는 미동에다 셰모시다. 다 하게 하당 하면 이제 하셔야 될 하체 체령외 동에로 가 체령 뭐 쉬지 되고요. 아니 하라 치포 마 치갈라와데 dundaji 콘라네 수수 겨와시마데 가와지게미 시기요.
야.
안데 늘 해내가라 수수 제로던데 요르바 안데 저다 대외 동에 쉬어요다. 저단 할라 믹스에게네 치포베 동에 해야 돼. 오늘 하데 배짱마체 아니 수수 때 띵이징이 세도로 만차 세 사고 말고 세 띵이징이 세. 띵이징이 세신이 요로 검정. 세 나나 감세라고 했땡 말어. 아니 르라 티시보 땅니 된데 제보 배다 전대장장 인석 요로. 다 dundaji 콘라 니 시갈라거든. 아니 그 수부 당도서 파예 니 수부를 팀하고 오라. 아니 하신다던데 그럼 다디 콜하 마레스네. 안데네 하네네 마 비셔가 요래. 안데 하마 인스지. 근데 라고 요래. 해나네 고 해테네 마 비셔가 요래. 아니 그 팀하고도 당도서 예체데. 아니 콜라 야치니 메버차. 다딘데 그 동에 쉬우지. 알아서 미야 겐고차도 다고자님에 강에도 왔다. 그래 지고지냐 미야 겐고 차스나나. 나는 저 호스피스다 드나 또다 아디 간레도로 겐고 가시. 한데 닝요 갈레카보다 미 야치니 말하네와 된데 쉬우지도.
야.
도저에다 지고지냐를 하기 지법에 동에서 해도
The suffering of the gods, demigods, when they are losing their life. Kisa di lama yinro tambo.
당 하루와 하달 치포와다네. 데네 그 디모카디 하네네 마 비샤르와.
Yeah, the gods when they suffering mostly at the time they transfer from one life to the next, or the suffering of death. It is that a week before they're about to leave that God realm, they know it, and they also have the tremendous suffering of separating from the other gods that they're close to. So that transfer at the time of death is particularly painful. because of their food has been quite subtle, that of the samadhi, or the food of concentration, not gross, not having a gross support like us, but 1 week before that change, they start to give off an odor, because previously the support was subtle, now the smell is gross, and you lose your luster as a god. And then the other gods look at you as not good, and they want to like kick you out. So it is tremendous suffering there a week before. And when we see old people, even in the human realm, in the rest homes, hospices and so forth, that are lonely and that no one wants to care for them, look after them, it's similar like that type of feeling left out. Right.
I saw one in India near the Sarah. I know this man, Indian man, old man. First Arab in Tibet, in Tibet, in Sarah, at Sarah. He was mystery means constructor, builder. He's not really skillful, but he's very nice person. He's very not really, very rough, not really professional, not really tardy. And then I think 10 or 15 years later, and we went to walk in the Indian village. And there one the tree under there some bamboo, bamboo bed, and I saw there one very old man, and he was there, this mister, and I asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "No," and he's so weak, his body is so weak. He talking very slow, and he don't have not much proper clothes. And then we asked him, "What happened? You have your children?" And the children kick out him in the outside the house. They don't like he's dead in their parents' house. And they said this is our tradition. It's in some group tradition like this. People they don't like people dead their home. This reason I need dead this outside. And then he's so weak. And then we go back, Sarah, and we take some clothes and sandals and some towels and a bucket, and then me and my friend went there and we did killing his body and keep some clothes, bring some bread like that. And next week we went, he all clothes already take out again. Then we went, he's his son, we annoy him, and I went his door knocking, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "This is our tradition." No, this is crazy. Your father look after you. Yeah, you need to look after father. Just forget the tradition. You need it. You look this animal have like this feeling. You are a human being. And he said, "Oh, this people give me complaint, social similar, peer pressure. Just don't care. Peer pressure doesn't matter. You need to look after your parents. And we talked with him. And I told him, you need to apologize to your father. Otherwise, we don't want to give you a job, We that time I building this Serachi, Hamdo comes in build. His son was working. He said, "If you don't do this, we don't want you come to our place work." And he said, sorry, I forgot it. And then I give some, sendo on. I ask some monk, they lost the extra clothes. If you have extra clothes, maybe give this person, give his father, And then later, I think 1 year later, and his father passed away. I don't know. And I met him. He said this makes he's more happy now because he have his father now. And then now I think most people don't do this. This is terrible in India. Some Kaja, very very bad Kaja. Right? It's not really nice Kaja. My grandmother told, don't put it down odd people. One day you become odd. My grandmother always said. Sometimes when I was young, and we have never one very angry old lady. We little bit fighting. My younger brother and we have my uncle auntie. We have maybe 15 children. Sometimes we play, and sometimes we broke in her pot, and then she yelling and she keep complaining to my father. And my father beat me, This reason we don't like this old lady. And we all the time give there some problem. And my grandmother knows, don't do that, I remember this. 제가 that 하기 치외 동에도서 치료클럽의 동에도서 시부지 요새를 간도 밀레 도가 요새를 가서나 코로나 게 겨치마디 거 두고 이메디 신경으로 겨치마디 hala jawaleni mila jawaleni mila jawalena tes thagarwa
Yeah.
tundula jawalen chedang zanda de tundula jawalen de tundu dunghe do shebe jawrwa ne chedang hade de tangma shebe jawrwa da ko yaksa de ne dusala dogosna donyi thogu marwa da de suina donyi thogu marwa ga dunghe yungro warwa
Yeah. So then will the death transference that the gods experience is far worse than humans because they will see where they're going. Okay, so it's a little bit okay if they go from a god to a human, but if they go from a god birth to an animal one, they will see the suffering there. So what is suffering is the extremity of being very clean and going to a realm where it's very dirty. So that extremity no one wants to go through.
제가 당연히 코와 내가 코도네 임부스게 메와디 삼 중나 아니 디고 다티 삼담부터 괴쳐버려.
Right.
파카와데나 초스민도 삼루스탄 레나 아니 야고요.
Yeah, so that just thinking that cyclic existence has no essence, that is dharma. That's the point you have to get.
다 딜레타베 타와 세야디 제가 아니 타와 되니로 레야라다 펜토고다 오네시네.
Yeah, and really, then the only thing left is the mind turning to liberation. That is a benefit.
지상 저 삼삼다 타바세야디 타르 무슈 지여버 나와 셰기도 얼바.
Yeah.
티키센 람리나나 틱틱지 송송아 틱도 네버 좀 쉬어도 타르바세와디 징벌레 줘버드레스다 먼저 단단 먼저 수수수게 투미지 남도다 저 담대도 얼바 발 당금면도 봐 직전은 직직도 니전도 가와지는 파즈 툭 칭제네 지 가서래 찌글토나 어디레기면도 데데레기면도 릴렉스를 시켜는 면도와 배직 쭉 타고를 쭉 담으신 요소를 싫어 제가 수수심게 남도 디게네 트스나나 타버 다가나 오네시나 징벌레 트버든 타르와 인송도 제르머신 틱디 그래서 틱도 누가 좀 쉬어도
Yeah. In that sense, then the notion of being liberated, we think it is so far away, but it is not. It appears to us as if liberation, the liberated state, is so far away. But in the Lam Rim, there's a wonderful, excerpt from Lama Tsongkhapa where he says, what is liberation? Liberation is the state that's free from being bound. So once you become free from your thoughts of inappropriate attention, and it's true, isn't it? The mind's always going project here and project there, and then always like going between those thoughts. But if you can relax the mind and be bound by none of those thoughts of inappropriate attention, then that definition from Lama Tsongkhapa, what is liberation? It is the state of not being bound. It really hits home.
제가 다 디레 가나서 동해에 자와데 가르스나 유디 니 군준 군중 코베 중에 마사나 코베 자와 주지미시 스타당 알아서 동에 사단다 제가나지 동에도 제 상마야야 상당한데 아니 저어디 저 빈지기 레라데 봐 저어디 레 세데 다 삼로 심기 삼당당지다 루잉하게 계좌 독자시 계좌 식 밀 계좌 식 독자시나 바로 마지 라마지 상마지 외무도
Yeah.
아니 수수 레가도 밀로 고다야 소리 레가잖아 수수 마지 라마지 상마지 외무도 아니 지금다 바로 롱줄라네와 셀라네와 아니 지 구육성조라네와 구육라네와 된대가 레가셔도 아니 미 바로 미 망보지를 마지보다 둔도 망보지라 마지보다 동에서 디스베네 수수라 마지바차 다팅 알아서 팅산데 마미도 저와 위트나미 워다 세컨 워다 아니 코리아 워다 근데 그 말도 니 막원도 저 제가 톱제 마네 줄로레네 삼바마 지워지 되기도 하러 같이네 미 표저 채소를 내가 담이인데 지우여 말대 뒤 가르쳐서는 되게네 코베게 싸워서 온다 녀모 레게 데부세야 된다 된데로 왔다가나 용악 레세 다른 무게 말해서 단다 싸고 그러는데
Okay. So then it's just like that. So if you don't put effort into contemplating true suffering, the faults of samsara, you'll not develop the wish for liberation. So cyclic existence, the nature of suffering, we should know that it is a result of these projecting these karmas which fling, literally. So it is a mind, or it is a speech that is faulty that hurts self and other. Or at work, we deceive others, and then we suffer and others suffer. And then we harm others with our bodies, be it their wealth, their life, the environment, the animals, all of that results in suffering. And when we do those karmic things out, we ourselves will suffer. Look at the harm caused by the various military bodies in the world, like Vietnam and so forth. How those things that they do are coming or are rooted in affliction, but doing those things with the body, the karma is actually quite close to see.
다디 자와디 아니 레디 군론 녀모라 되네 도고라 군중 코베 다 군중 그 자와라 가서는 레레 되네 레디 자와 녀모 지사 녀모라 되네다 녀모가 남샤도서 신고 요래다
So therefore, if you understand the karmic volitions and how they're coming from an afflicted mental state, then rooted in that, then you have to actually identify what is afflictions as the root.
So
therefore, when we come to true origins, we're going to look at it in terms of, true origins of karma and true origins of afflictions.
Oh, that nyomongo that the beja di lo grounds, beja di lo shana yago yizre. That catch is the Naranzo Mezena Lacheza, Dungi Yunguyore, Kangi Yunguyore, Nezu Sango Yungore, Nezu Nembo Yungore, Nezu Sangi Yani Karina, kissing Lamashe signal Dosoma, Donna Sangena or Jishaya, Donna Tedela Sawa, the Nemba now Karishavina. Chuguning but don't get yamlingis, Chanju Simni Pive, Lamjis, Chuguning but don't get yamleva, the Yamlinche, Chanju Simni, Kunzo Chanju Sim, the Tunda Chanju Simni, Yamlendoya, Tietona, Tamadela, Yidibashi Kumbaji, so Sangi Karishavin and Simnala, Yigi Devaji, Giagona, and Tavish or a start. Chizang another Dunge Yunguyana, or Dunge the past set and a lang in between with the Cessna, Deva Yungre, Chicksam that chick, some Mamutayoro. 동해디 에너지 또 하고도 닝지 냠내치게나 동랭 냠내체네 로아 신이 동해 줄래랑 대화파되지 동해 동랭 렘바디기 닝지 냠내다 동어디기 참배 냠내치 치유서 거라 단동도 동랭 냠내치 어딘데 상로 당토베이나 아니 코와디나라 대위니 또 동해디나라 대위니 코라랑 추 냠랭 갈라 파 체트는 다 다가라래 아니 대당 이중계야다 chanjuk chanjuk 동니도 배 따와라 야제도야다 더저다 레븐도 자 다 메제디 나라오다 나라야 지 야고 총소 삼자로지 가도에 나라바다고 가리나면은 지 딕송다 지 셈데 최다 다 여러 로도 삼삼총나 텐니 디고다
So in short, in terms of understanding this life, that suffering situations will come and problems are there, good and bad situations will come. But we should remember the verses from the Lama Chöpa, which said, that we recited yesterday, that said, in short, whatever situations arise for oneself, be it good or bad, please bless me to turn them into the path of the bodhicitta by utilizing, by engaging in the practice of taking and giving, the Tonglen, so that everything dawns in a type of mental bliss, relative bodhicitta, and then those two. So that means that the suffering, when you're taking it on, in terms of taking, the non-virtue stopped. And secondly, when you're giving the compassion, or when you're taking the compassion, when you're taking the suffering, it is a cause of compassion. And when you're giving, it is a cause for love and kindness. So that is the essential practice. And then you understand, if you can do that within the constraints of cyclic existence, then whatever comes up, if it is a difficult situation, that becomes your practice of bodhicitta, it becomes your practice of the view of emptiness. And then in this life, that's what we would call the Dharma practice, whatever's happening. So now we'll read the rest of the text, page 6. The generation of the mind, post of the Mahayana path, the basin support of great waves of conduct, a philosopher's stone transforming all into the two collections. I who am seeking liberation will also practice in this way. Generosity is the wish-fulfilling jewel, satisfying the hopes of transmigration beings. Cutting the knot of mountains, the activity conquers and strengthens courage without dismay. In the 10 directions, having understood this, the wise rely on the excellent path of having given away their bodies, traditions and virtues. You, the perfect guru, practiced in this way. I also practice in this way. Moonlight dispelling hot the splendid is Mount Meru in the midst of the 9 types of beings. It gathers all transmigratory beings with those very force. You, the perfect guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Patience is the finest ornament of the powerful. With the feeble all hardships, the enemy, the snake of hatred. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. When you don Amala, the qualities of scripture and realizing, grease like a waxy moon, all your behavior becomes meaningful. Whatever actions are undertaken, having understood this, content children put forth the concentration is the key. Engages in all virtuous subjects and induces the great bliss of a serviceable body and mind. Wisdom is an eye seeing profound essence, the path eradicating the root of existence, the treasury of qualities praised in all scriptures, and renowned as the supreme lamp, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. Having understood this, the wise who desire liberation generate the path with much effort. Who practiced in this way, seeking liberation will also practice in this way. One-pointed concentration alone is not considered not a virtue affliction that reflects on the real mode of existence, upon the horse of steadfast, free of extremes, destroy all mental fabrications that feel You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. I, who am seeking liberation, will also practice in this way. Stabilization achieved by one point in meditation is not enough. With the individual investigation of proper analysis, generate the meditative stabilization that abides. Having seen this, understand how wonderful are those who endeavor to accomplish the union of calm abiding and special insight. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. Will also practice in this way. In meditative equipoise, emptiness is like space. In post-meditation, emptiness is like an illusion. Through meditation on both method and wisdom are unified. The conduct of the conqueror's children is praised. The creation of those of good fortune is not satisfied by either path alone. You, the perfect Guru, practiced in this way. Having generated the common path necessary for the two supreme Mahayana paths, and enter the great ocean of the classes of Tantra, then through reliance on complete perfect instructions, make the attainment of your leisures and endowments meaningful. Practiced in this way, I who am seeking liberation will also practice in this way, due to the virtue of in clear words, a perfect complete path pleasing to the conquerors, so as to familiarize my mind with it. I made the prayer, all transmigratory beings never be parted from the excellent pure path. Guru practiced in this way. And also practice in this way.
Education.
Page 31.
Poje Joshi Meta Virabdin Shini De Gyambadi Sangye Shinde Midi Ewayi Ndwagunamda Shenla Chupasho Kuserab Tenshin Namka Tinne Patang Lo Sang Tempe Drome Sasunki Droe Munse Tatu Nechuchi
Guru Rane Mendena Kamni Hataya Mis
Kevardi New Data Lamar Sangi Jujuni Chowa
Pena dewa manu jiwe, jere